New York Knicks facing off against the Boston Celtics. Thank God this one is not a 7 p.m. start time, making me rush home a little too bit and get a little too crazy, man. Gotta make sure a little man gets to bed. But 7:30 p.m. is the start time for this game. So you know we gotta come correct. Got to get ready. Got to bring my guy Bobby Manning back on the show. If you already know who he is, come on. You already know who this man is. He is a Celtics and NBA reporter for CLNS Media. You can catch him over at the Garden Report. He does a phenomenal job breaking down the Celtics. Make sure to give him a follow. Great basketball mind. Make sure to hit that thumbs up button for your boys. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. This is going to be a good one, man. For Knicks fans, we're excited because, hey, we're looking pretty good so far against the Cavs. Celtics, you know, you had Edgecombe, you had Maxey. Lost by 1 point, Bobby, but interesting different showings for these teams to start off the season.
Yeah, and that's a killer for the Celtics if I'm them because you're up 13 at the start of the fourth. You have everything rolling your way for the most part. They were winning a lot of small battles in this game. Joel Embiid only hit one shot and wasn't out there in crunch time, and you still squander it. And there's going to be a lot of games this year. It's a totally different Celtics team where they just aren't in it. Guys are hurt. The opponent's just much better than them. And that's why we're all chalking this team up somewhere above or below 500 in that territory. But if you're going to
Wow.
exceed expectations, if you're this team this year, you have to win those games. That was tough. And I pulled a lot of positives from it. I love Derek White's performance, and I think he's going to shock a lot of people around the NBA this year with how consistently dominant he is with Jason Tatum out. Uh, there were other contributors. Nemesh Keita at center certainly is someone who's going to have to step up for this game tomorrow, and we'll get to that. But there were some bright spots here and there throughout this game. I thought their style, their approach, their system was impressive at times. But the crunch time execution was not great. The
Mm.
transition defense number coming out of that game, out of all the teams in the league who played their first games, they were dead last by far, guarding in transition. Obviously, that's something the Knicks love to do as well here. And their big man depth, which was already thin, lost another body in Luka Garza, who went out in concussion protocol almost
Oof.
immediately. So, I mean, they're coming into this game on Friday with two bigs and two unproven bigs at that. So they're up against it going into this game. I haven't looked at a line yet.
I haven't
I
looked at the
would guess it's like 5.5.
5.5, you're saying. All right, let me pull it up right now. Let's see what we got here for the line for tomorrow between the New York Knicks and the Boston Celtics. Let's see if we can find this real quick around here. Let's see. Let's go to the NBA. There, let's see. More NBA. Can we find this game? Here we go. So it is 5.5. Look at Bobby. Look
Hey,
at this guy.
look at
He
me.
knows the teams. He knows the league. He watches on every single game and then some. That's why we got you on the show, Bobby. But you know, you're giving a little preview for the Celtics. We'll certainly get into some Celtics storylines and breaking this game down. But I got to ask you first. You know, since the last time we spoke, you came in bold and brash, thinking that the Celtics were going to take out the Knicks. Don't think I'm going to let you live this one down, man. Don't think I'm going to let you live this one down.
Is
You
anyone
came
even going to
back.
believe anything I say after that great prediction?
But look, man, Knicks, you know, shocked the world, beat the Celtics in the semis. Now we're in a different position. We made some moves this offseason, added Jordan Clarkson, Gerson Yabusele. We got Mike Brown.
Yabu,
We got a lot
former
of guys.
Celtic.
Yabu was a former Celtic, man, before he had to go back to France. So
Hmm.
I'm sure you're very familiar with his game and his, you know, who he is as a player. But I got to start off with what did you think about the Knicks offseason moves?
I love the coaching hire. Now, listen, I didn't love firing Tibbs. I don't love a lot of those coach firings around the league that seem to happen routinely now, and that one was especially difficult. I'm sure even for Knicks fans, given what he gave to the team over the 4 or 5 years he was there. I understood it though. Things getting stale. Everyone probably not being on the same page organizationally and in the locker room. And his style probably not fitting the modern game perfectly, or even this roster. I know a lot of Knicks fans in my life. I went to Syracuse, so a lot of New Yorkers, a lot of Knicks fans, and they were frustrated. Even with the success they had last season, I'm sure you felt similarly. It felt
Hmm.
like they left something on the table with how they handled their rotations. You saw in that Pacers series
For
too.
sure.
Once they started going a little deeper into the bench, they grew more competitive. The double big lineup which we talked about going into that Celtics series, formulated a little too late there. And so I get it. And I love Mike Brown. I think he's already showing some ingenuity, coaching up that offense there, and he's always been a good defensive coach too. So the drop off isn't massive there. Now, this was a max effort team last year, a team that played its starters as many minutes as it possibly could. So comparing regular season success last year to this year is going to be difficult because I do think they're probably going to experiment a little more, try some things, get guys more rest. Obviously, two key guys are injured to start the year, which isn't great. So this is a team that could take a step back potentially in the regular season to take a step forward in the playoffs, which has to be exciting if you're a Knicks fan. That's why you make a move like that. As far as the roster moves go, I love the Yabu one, especially coming off the year he had. Low stakes role in Philly, obviously, right? They were a bad team. They didn't have a ton to play for. He got to play a ton of minutes and have freedom in those minutes. So
Hmm.
translating that to actually returning to a smaller role in New York on a team that has championship expectations, I'll be interested to see how that goes for him because that's obviously the spot he was in early in his career in Boston and couldn't break through and find consistency. So it's a different situation for him, but I still like the move, especially at the money they paid there. Clarkson. I don't know. Yeah, like, how, is he a big part of a playoff series? Like, he's definitely a regular season innings eater kind of guy who's gonna give you 10, 15 points, maybe more on some nights, and just be available. But I don't know if he's a major contributor in a playoff rotation at this stage of his career. We'll see. Like, he was just floating out there in Utah and playing on a bad team for so long at this point. I'll be interested to see what he has left to contribute. And the Brogdon thing was too bad because I like that pickup too. Like if he was anything close to healthy, close to himself, that would have been helpful. But when you looked at the preseason productivity from him, it wasn't quite there, and he just hasn't been on the court consistently since he was in Boston. So,
Yep.
not a shocker to me that he made that decision to retire. And Shamit coming back, I think, is a smart move out of that group there. I know Matthews was in camp and showed some things, but Shamit rather carved out a pretty good role into the playoffs. So, this was one of my higher, ranked off seasons. They would probably be in my top 10 in terms of the moves they made here. And they didn't have to do a ton. Like keeping this roster together, bringing guys back, even the coaching change and what looks like it's going to be the move when Mitch does get back of starting Towns and Mitch together, I think is a smart decision. The bummer is that he's not there out of nowhere, really, alongside Hart, who was banged up a lot in the preseason, it felt like. So they're going to get to test their depth pretty quickly here, almost immediately. The Towns thing was weird the other night, too, him going doubtful out of nowhere. Like, this team's not in a great health position to start the year, but as I
Hmm.
said, it's not about where you are right now. It's about where you are in April, May, hopefully June for them.
Exactly. And that's the whole premise of what the front office wanted to do this offseason. Bring in Mike Brown. The big thing that they wanted was somebody who would be collaborative with not only the players, but the front office and the medical staff. And we obviously won't know the full depth of how collaborative Tom Thibodeau was, but the fact that they made that a point of emphasis for this offseason is clear as what they wanted. And well, to say, let's go with what CP, tweeted out the other day, a report is that he said that if Mitchell Robinson and Josh Hart needed to play, it was like do or die situation. They probably would have been out there for game one, but because it's not a do or die situation, they're going to rest these guys to make sure that they're fully healthy. Because as you already stated, Bobby, the big picture is postseason run, and so yeah, they'll probably take a step back. I've been on a couple other shows and say, hey, I expect this team to win 54, 55 games. I'm not expecting them to go into that 60 mark territory because they're not trying to win the regular season. This is not Tom Thibodeau. This is not a guy who's Mike Brown and this front office is not about, hey, let's accumulate as many wins as possible. I also think they're looking at it from a standpoint where having home court advantage doesn't seem to be a big thing anymore either. So why gun for something where you look at the Cavs, who were number one last year, lost to Indiana in the second round. You look at what the Celtics had; they had home court advantage. They lost to the Knicks in the second round. So it doesn't really matter with home court advantage. It's are your players healthy and how well is the team producing where when they're in that postseason run. So I agree with you on that standpoint. I like the moves. I actually like the Clarkson signing. I think with Yabo and Clarkson, this is where you experiment with the depth and see who has it going for most of the night. And if Clarkson has it going, look, this is a guy that can drop 25, 30 in a given game if he's feeling it. And so All you need to do is just to make sure that he's feeling it that night, and then it's a positive for you. And with Yabu, I think it's going to be based on how he's producing as well, because I liked what Ariel Haporti showed in game one for the
I like
Knicks.
him too.
And look, the depth for this team and how Mike Brown just in game one utilized it was just so refreshing, because it's like, okay, if you're giving guys confidence and opportunity, they can actually go out there and produce something for your team and be a
Miles
positive.
McBride, like another
Yeah,
guy
Miles
who's
McBride,
due
another
more
guy.
minutes, more opportunity. There's guys up and down the side. You're even using a little bit of Tyler Kolek, who I don't think they used much of last season at all. And
He
that's a
had some
guy I
good minutes
like.
too. Yeah, he had some good
Yeah.
minutes too in yesterday's game. You know, was just playing aggressive, making the right passes. We know he's a really good passer, but the fact that he's given the confidence for Mike Brown in game one to go out there and just attack the lane, try to finish them layups, even layups that he missed, it was like, okay, you're someone's instilling confidence in you to go take these attempts, which is what you want to see, especially for that position where you want to make the defense collapse as you attack the paint. So I like what I see so far, man. I like what I see so far from Mike Brown. And the new look Knicks roster, very inspiring indeed. And hey, salute to Knicks Nation. Thank you all for tuning in for another game preview. With me on the other side is my guy, Bobby Manning. He covers the Celtics for CLNS Media. So make sure you go check him over there. You can go find him on the Garden Report as well as one of the hosts of that show. So make sure to go tap in and check out his work over there. And hey, make sure to support one of our sponsors. All right. Tonight's sponsor, we got two of them. One of our sponsors is DraftKings. All right. So all of your favorite NBA players are back, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA, is the place to bet on NBA stars this season. New customers bet just $5 and get 3 months of NBA League Pass. Plus, score $300 if your bet wins, paid in bonus bets. So, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code KFTV. That's code KFTV. Bet $5 and get 3 months of League Pass, plus get $300 in bonus bets if your bets win. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort. Pass-through of per wager tax may apply in Illinois. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets, which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. NBA League Pass auto renews until canceled. Additional terms at dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer. So remember to use that promo code KFTV to get up to $300 in bonus bets after you place $5, and you get 3 months of League Pass free. All right. Shout out to our sponsor at DraftKings. All right, Bobby. Now let's get to your team, man. Let's get to the Celtics, because some big changes happened this offseason. You traded KP. You traded Drew Holiday. Obviously, we know about the Tatum injury. We saw that all happen in the postseason, although he's recovering quite quickly. He's on the court and even talking to Tom Thibodeau. Speaking of which, a guy who's still getting paid by the Knicks, but hey,
I was gonna
he's out there in
say
Boston.
he's been collaborative with Boston.
Good God, man. You win a championship over there, help the Knicks twice, and now you go back to Boston to go help them and be like, hey, this is what you did against the
So
Knicks
I
wrong,
was
man.
and I love the Knicks fans. I love the passion. I was bummed about that because that was Jalen who was talking about how, oh, Tom was here and he was, telling us about how the Knicks beat us and blah blah blah. I thought that was such a cool story, and then it blew up. It became such a big deal online that no one wanted to talk about it the next day. Joe shut it right down, said that's not what he was doing here. Derek White didn't want to talk about it. So I want some of the details of that, his day in Boston, is his time. And he's been around a bunch of teams, obviously, right? So, this wasn't an unusual appearance for him, but I thought that was really what insight did they get from him? What did they learn from that meeting? How did the Knicks beat the Celtics? I want to know. Obviously, that wasn't something I was expecting.
Mm.
And listen, credit to Tibbs. I mean, he coached circles around Joe in that series, and I'm a Missoula guy. I think he's been underrated in the imprint and impact he's had on this team. But that was a rough series for him between playing KP too much and not getting the Luke Cornett fast enough, who was dominant later in the series, too little, of Peyton Pritchard minutes. And there were just gripes I could go on about for days when it came to Joe's management of that series. I didn't like the fouling of Mitchell Robinson. Obviously, their shot selection in game one was questionable as they squandered the massive lead. There's just a million things from that series that are still so frustrating to look back on,
Well, you're just
especially
making
given
me
the
happy as you talk
opportunity.
about it.
Well, once you look back on it, and you knew you were going to probably lose Porzingis and Holiday, as you mentioned, but then you lose Cornette too. You lose Horford on top of it, who nobody would have pictured leaving before that Tatum injury. And then the Tatum injury on top of it. Like, talk about a nightmare. And I still think there's this thing Celtics fans tell themselves of like, yeah, if Tatum was healthy, blah blah blah. But even at that point, they were down 3-1 when he got hurt, effectively, because there was only 3 minutes left in the game at that point. That series was just so devastating against the team they dominated all year. That one, man, that one still hurts.
So what do you think of this team? I mean, you mentioned above 500 earlier in the show.
Hmm.
Is that like the expectation amongst media, Celtics fans? Like where do you see this team moving for this year? Do you see them going to be in the top six? What's the outlook for the Celtics?
They have a lot of holes to plug on the roster. Like you look up and down, even in the starting lineup, and you're like, all right, where's the rebounding? Where's the consistent defense? Where's the playmaking? And I thought on opening night, which showed more than anything, was Jaylen Brown did some good things. Derek White did some great things. But no one else was there to help them out, especially when the Sixers packed it in and loaded up on them late. It got difficult in the half court for them. And, their offensive numbers were good coming out of that game. Their defensive numbers in the half court were pretty solid, maybe even great against Embiid and company there. But they got torched by Maxey. They got torched by Edgecombe. Rebounding is going to be difficult for them all season. The big man position almost immediately became a revolving door with Cade again pulled after 3 minutes and Tillman's out there for a little bit. And then
Mm.
Garza, like, Joe just has these guys cycling in and out of the game. And one interesting thing Joe said, and I feel like Joe, if I'm going to be optimistic here, institute a intriguing system during training camp where they're playing fast, where they're defending aggressively, where they're swarming around and just playing with max effort for all their minutes and going deeper into their rotation. So that's how they have to play. Jalen said this year, given that they're not as talented, given that they're not as experienced. And I'm interested to see how that works out because I do think that can be a formula for success. Like they borrowed some things from the Pacers that allowed them to be successful. They borrowed some things from the Thunder's defense and forced 20 turnovers a game during the preseason. So there's some interesting stuff they're trying. And at their best in the opener, they were super competitive. But at their worst, their roster, which you can look at on paper and judge based on the guys who just haven't played a lot in their career, it's a flawed roster. So how do you work around that? Can you sustain even a single significant injury without I hate to use the word, but tanking. Like an injury or two, and this team could be in that territory this year. I'm going to
Wow.
be optimistic and say they are healthy. They are, playing effectively in that system, and Joe's getting the best out of this team. This is a big year for Joe, where I think he could actually get a lot of credit for the team's success without people just saying, "Oh, he has the best roster. Of course they're good." So there's a significant year for him, for Brown stepping into Tatum's shoes. So there's Derek White, who, again, I think people have this idea of who Derek is, just a steady guy. He could be an all-star this year, for sure, with the amount of responsibility and workload he's going to have. And he can just be a statistical monster. And, if I'm the Knicks and I'm looking at that, roster on the other side, and I'm like, all right, who do we have to look out for? Who do we really have to take out of this game? I'm doing everything I can to take Derek White out because he's just everywhere, screening, shooting. I mean, he took like 15 threes in the opener. He had a
Rebounding,
huge
assisting.
block in transition. Yeah, he's everywhere. He's one of the best role players in the league. If you want to call him the best role player in the league, like I don't think that's a stretch. And obviously you can be a star in your role, in this league. So that's the good side of things. The big man position, massive question. As you look at this game on Friday, what are you doing against Towns? What are you doing against OG and Huck Porty and just that massive aggressive Knicks front line there? Like I said, it's going to be an uphill battle in this game. This is one of the matchups, and there'll be these. It's weird as a Celtics, follower to actually look at a game and say, I don't know if they can win this because every game was winnable for them in the past. Joe said that should continue to be the case, but I'll be intrigued to see how they stay in this one against this team.
Yeah, and I look with the way that the Knicks team was rebounding, especially with OG. I mean, it'd be a totally different scenario too if we had Mitchell Robinson and Josh Hart back. I mean, those guys are just monsters on the board. So, you know, in game one, Knicks out rebounded the Cavs. Was like 48 to 32 or 36, something along those lines. So I expect them to replicate the same thing, especially since you're talking about the Celtics not having any front court
I
depth.
mean,
And
this was the closing lineup for the Celtics last night. If you want to look at rebounding size, Simons, Pritchard, White, Brown, Kata.
wow, that is not great. Not great. And
Yeah.
and this is not even to like be like tooting the horn, be like, oh yeah, Knicks are just gonna cream them. But it's like the way that OG was rebounding. I mean, he had 14 boards last night. He filled the role of like Josh Hart very admirably, considering that this is a guy who wasn't getting double digit rebounds like that last season. So look, winning basketball games is, you know, who is going to take possession of who's going to control the glass, right? Who's going to clean it up? And so if the Knicks are going to have this advantage over the Celtics, then I see the Celtics having a massive uphill battle unless, which is this is totally in the Celtics' hands. They're just shooting lights out from all over the place, and that's totally a possibility, especially with Peyton Pritchard, Derek White, Jalen Brown. Those guys can just create shots and knock them down at a high clip. So that would be the one way I could see that the Celtics could, you know, do that, like to be in this game against the Knicks. But it's still going to be an uphill battle if they're not doing that.
Yeah, I think their two paths to victory are forcing a ton of turnovers, which if I'm looking at the Knicks on opening night, 13, probably a little higher than you want it to be, but not an awful number for them in that game. But the Celtics are going to pressure them, like full court press, double teams left and right, scrambling, rotating, collapsing. Like they're going to give up more threes this year because they want to pack the paint. They want to throw a bunch of bodies at a guy like Towns and just make other teams uncomfortable. That's been Joe's big thing this preseason is let's not allow the Brunsons of the world, the Towns of the world to play comfortably, attack one-on-one, see individual defense. Like this Celtics defense used to be guard your yards, switch everything, just stay in front of the other guys, maybe give up a three here or there to a bad shooter, but we're cutting things off, we're staying in front of guys. You're gonna notice it almost immediately tomorrow. Like they're gonna send two at Brunson around a screen. They're gonna rotate behind and bring some guys off shooters to guard Towns. So I'd say this game's gonna be Bridges, OG, are those guys hitting threes because they're gonna get a lot of open threes. The way that the Celtics are gonna guard that pick and roll between Brunson and Towns. So it's a whole different approach, and I'll credit Joe. Like one of the big questions we had over this offseason is, are they just going to continue to do the same thing here? And they clearly aren't. They almost completely transformed their system on both sides of the floor. Still going to be a lot of threes. Still going to be, a lot of Jalen, a lot of Derek, some familiar faces there. Sam Hauser, too, is an underrated name to watch out for. But um, I think their style is going to allow them to be better.
Can you guys hear us now? Can you guys hear us now? Do we have do we have audio back? Do we have audio back? Let me know before we keep going.
Got some New York sounds out the window here. I'll let people know
Let
we're
me
back.
know. All right, there we go. We are back now. I can hear the
Boom.
audio back on the show. We are back up and going. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I was just talking about the system and how this team can be a greater sum than the parts on paper, but someone has to emerge among the other guys. Now, when you're looking at the Celtics roster, who are you looking out for? Like outside of like the obviously White, Brown, like those kind of guys are you going to be looking at first and foremost. But is there anyone on this roster that intrigues you, newcomers, guys who maybe showed a little bit during the preseason?
Mm, Anthony Simons is probably gonna be the guy. Like he showed a little bit
Definitely.
during the preseason. I do like his game. So that's a guy off the bench that, for you guys that I would be a little bit more not extremely concerned about, but he's certainly a guy that can put up points. And so when I look at how do you compete with a scrappy team that, you know, well, let's say for like a lack of a better word, is just what are they playing for this year? It's like a soft reset just to like gather some assets, see what you have on this roster now. Like sometimes you can fall asleep at the wheel when you're a team that's like the Knicks in the position where like, yo, we got bigger aspirations. Do Are we going to go like 110% every single night? A guy like Anthony Simons could take advantage of that. And so if
Yep.
your bench isn't ready, if the team's not ready, he's a guy that I would say, hey, watch out for him because his shot creating, his athleticism, his ability to get to the rim, like he offers a lot of that three level scoring as a young budding scorer like in this league. Like that's a guy I'd be worried about. Outside of that, Peyton Pritchard, of course, just because his shot making is more annoying than anything else. Because it's like, all right, man, we just guarded you for like 5 minutes. Somehow you take a step back and now you just knock it over. And the thing is, like, it's the height difference too. So if it's like you would see somebody like Mikal Bridges on him, he dribbles around, just circles around you, and then next thing you know, he finds just like a sliver of space, puts up a shot, drills it. You're like, come on, man. Like it's just so backbreaking when you have to work that hard, and then next thing you know, you don't even stop somebody. So those are probably
He's
the two
another
biggest
guy
guys. I
too.
mean,
Like, there were a couple years early in his career where he just wasn't playing, and ever
right?
since, he's gone back in the rotation. It's like, all right, I'll play 40 minutes as hard as I can. Like I've
Yeah.
been waiting to play, and that's where he's at in his career. There's a lot of guys with stuff to prove on this roster. I was thinking it was funny because like the team put out a post with him actually narrating it. Isaiah Thomas came to mind that year, where it was just. There were some talented guys on that roster like Marcus Smart and Al Horford, but it was mostly just a bunch of role guys coming together, playing insanely hard every night, with one guy rising way above and having an MVP level year. And they made these finals with that, just sort of scrapped together team. Not that that's the upside of this team necessarily, but that's the kind of competitiveness I could see in the regular season from them. And just again, if they're gonna press and play this like all out defensive style and force turnovers and foul, like they're gonna be one of those effort teams that pull wins that you don't expect out of regular season games against teams that are sleepwalking. And obviously, you know, I I wonder if he'll be at the Garden tomorrow. I would imagine he will be. You mentioned it earlier, the Tatum factor. Like that looms over everything here. Is he back in February? Is he back in March? Where's the team at that point? Because
Mm-hmm.
if he has a miraculous recovery here, and there's a couple things that had happened over the offseason right after that injury that could allow him to come back then quicker than anyone has before, then the whole conversation around this team changes of like, all right, can this team go on a run? If Tatum's anything close to be who he used to be. I don't anticipate that being the case, even if he does come back. Like that injury just takes so long to get your confidence
So long,
back
man.
and return to your full effectiveness. So I feel like the hype's a little too high around, he's coming back and saving the day right now just because of all the videos and everything. But the fact that it's even a conversation right now does have to have everyone on the team being like, all right, like, can we hold the line here until he gets back later in the year? And, who knows what happens at that point. So, that's the most optimistic view of this year is that guys emerge. There's all this excitement about being able to play more, and the coaching's good, and they just take people by surprise. But like I said, there's a pessimistic view of this year where, oh man, Jalen misses 3 weeks and we're gonna lose almost every game while he's out. Like that's, in play because this team's just so thin. There is no like particularly at the big man position. I said it to you before we started recording. Their big man rotation tomorrow night is Nemesh Keita, Xavier Tillman, and maybe a little Chris Boucher. Like that's it. That's
Oof.
all they have at center going up against Towns and OG and all these other guys in the front court.
Salute to Knicks Nation. Thank you all for tuning for another game preview. With me on the other side is my guy, Bobby Manning. He covers the Celtics for CLNS Media. You can also find him over at the Garden Report. He is one of the hosts of that show as well. Also, make sure to support our other sponsor, man. We got another sponsor for this show, and it is called, their name is called, give me a second, Square. The name of the company is Square. All right. So this episode is brought to you by Square, your favorite neighborhood spot run on Square. All right. These businesses are what make your neighborhood. These are the places that become an extension of home. When neighborhood business thrives, the whole neighborhood thrives. When we show up as a community, it can mean big business for local business owners. Money spent in the neighborhood stays in the neighborhood. Take this ad as an excuse to go support your favorite local spot and have yourself a day in the neighborhood. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/KFTV to learn more, but before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square. See you in the neighborhood. All right. Shout out to our sponsor, Square. Make sure to go support your own local shops. All right. Your own local businesses. All right. Let's get back to this. Let's start to wrap this thing up. So, Bobby, we kind of like started to get into it. We talked about a lot about the front court depth and how that's going to play out in this game for tomorrow. But is there anything else that you're seeing between these two teams as of right now that concerns you? For me, to start off, I think the shot creating for this team is going to be problematic for the Celtics just because, you know, with a team that likes to get downhill, and if you're not going to have, the front court depth, it's not only like impactful from a rebounding standpoint. Who is stopping guys like Jalen Brunson or anybody else who's capable of getting downhill, even Jordan Clarkson, and stopping them from getting to the rim? I mean, we even got to see Mikal Bridges. He's more confident in attacking the rim right now. OG Anunoby, he brought up the ball quite a bit at times yesterday and is willing to get downhill. So Mike Brown is empowering a lot of these players to drive and get to the cup. So if you're not going to have that front court depth, I think something that we're going to see in this game is the Knicks trying to take advantage of the lack of Celtics rim protection and see if they can just force them to collapse there and then generate open threes on the perimeter.
Yeah, and if you look at the Philly game, the Celtics gave up 43-point attempts. Philly hit 16 of them. So they were able to find a lot of VJ Edgecombe obviously used that to, have a career night from three, and Maxey was just ridiculous. And obviously I think there's some similarities between Brunson and Maxey's game. White had a tough time containing him around screens and, trying to be in sync with the big men, like those switches and just pick and roll defense were difficult for the Celtics to navigate in that game. So, the transition points were the most devastating, but they did get hit hard in the half court at times too. Like Maxey hit three straight threes at one point. One of them was in transition, but that turned the game around for Philly early in the fourth quarter. So the Brunson matchups going to be difficult for any team, but especially this one right now with where the defense is at. The big man and size mismatch speaks for itself. And then, I think the other underrated thing about this is that the Knicks just play with a level of speed and aggression that I think is almost going to match Boston's. Like that hit them hard alongside like the difficult environment MSG is to play in during that playoff series. And if the Knicks are going to throw some defensive pressure right back at the Celtics, like are they able to prevent turnovers? I thought they did a pretty good job with that against Philly, who didn't pressure them a ton. But the
Mhm.
Knicks are going to do that, and they're going to be aggressive with some of their pick and roll coverages. And the one area they might be able to maybe expose, as is going to be the conversation around this Knicks team all year, is the Brunson Towns defensive pick and roll coverage. And I just don't think they have enough at center right now, unless Keita has another big game and he's a threat to even make that a challenge for the Knicks right now. Like this isn't Porzingis there anymore. This isn't Al Horford out in the pick and pop. Like they just had such a wealth at that position in the past, and now it's an unproven cast that again suffered an injury with Luka Garza in game one, who's going to be out for this matchup here. So. Um, they're going to compete. They're going to keep this close. Again, 5 points I think is fair. Like they'll be in that range for a lot of this one, but can they limit the Knicks runs enough to actually take and hold on to a lead late in this game? I don't see it yet as this team continues to navigate and figure out who they are. The Knicks know who they are, even with some new pieces and a new coach. Like the core is still intact. There's enough of the fabric of last year's team, even without Robinson and Hart, for them to be able to win a game like this at home. So I'll take the Knicks by like 5 or 6.
So you're sticking with the line, man. You're sticking with that 5.5 line. You called it earlier, so that's what you're going to stick with.
I think that's who these Celtics are going to be this year. Like competitive, keeping it close, but how many games can they actually finish? I'll be interested to see what Jalen Brown does in that sense because I don't think he got the opportunity to close out last game. I don't think he got the shots and looks. part of that was Philly, doubling and getting him off the ball in some of those situations. But I'll be looking for him to demand the ball and take advantage of those situations in this game, whereas Philadelphia forced him out of those situations last game because obviously that can be the guy who is a game breaker down the stretch. And he's had some big games against the Knicks in his career for sure. I remember that double overtime opening night game a couple years ago, and a handful of others that he's had against his team, even in the playoffs last year, despite the injury he was playing through. And he's a little hobbled right now himself, coming back from a preseason hamstring tweak.
Hmm.
But he's close enough where I think he can have a big game here to keep the Celtics in it. And like I said, look out for Derek White, man. You're going to be amazed by how good he looks tomorrow.
I know how good Derek White is. I had him on my fantasy basketball team last year, and the man
It's a
was.
good choice.
Hey, and let me tell you something. When I drafted him, everybody was trying to trying to send me trade offers, and they were the wackest trade offers I've ever seen. And if you're tuning in from that league, you all know who you are, man. Some of you got the craziest names too, so I can't even put them out there and say what the team names are in the
And
fantasy league.
forget fantasy, real life. I think one of the interesting storylines, depending on how the Celtics season goes, is I think pretty much every team in the league would want Derek White to
Oh yeah,
finish
man.
off
I
their
would want
team.
Derek White on my team. Are you kidding me? Like to have that guy
So
on your team, he's fantastic. He's
how
absolutely
aggressive do
fantastic. Does
teams get?
everything. He does everything. We talked about it. He could rebound. He can score, assist, like all of that, man. Like his IQ and just like being a star. Like if you're talking about being a star in your role, there's like a handful of guys who are stars in the role. I would say like Draymond is, Derek White is, Josh Hart is. Like there's not a lot of guys who are legitimate stars in their role who properly get the like recognition for how good they are and how impactful they are for their team. Like Josh Hart's the same way. This guy rebounds, he playmakes, hustles. He's a ball hawk. He does a lot of things. He's not necessarily the greatest scorer, but on some nights he can be. And what he did last season by just getting damn near a triple double every single night, it's impactful for what he had to do for that starting five and the workload that he had playing damn near 40 minutes. So guys like that, like Derek White, like they don't get enough recognition. And I know they get it's jokes when people are like, oh, this guy could be an all-star. And it's like the guy's really good, man. Like when you watch him play, it's like all these guys are really good that we're talking about who are stars in their role, but very few get that opportunity, like a Draymond Green, to be nominated, right? And get the all-star accolade. So gotta give kudos to those type of guys who are just stars in their roles, man. But I'm glad that you brought up Jalen Brown though, because he is one half of this key matchup that I have for tomorrow. It is him and OG Anunoby. Now, it could be I'm expecting Mikal Bridges to get some of that responsibility too to guard Jalen Brown. But I think when you think pound for pound, strength for strength, it's going to be OG Anunoby, which was the switch that they did in the postseason last year when these two teams faced off. So I'm looking for OG to take that responsibility and try to contain Jalen Brown. Now, going into this matchup, I'm expecting Jalen Brown to continue to want to show the league that, hey, I know Tatum gets a lot of love. That's my boy. It's probably what you think. That's my boy. I want him to continue to get a lot of love, but I should be getting some love too. Everyone says I was the one that needed to be traded. Everyone questioned the contract that I got. And what better time to show that you feel deserving of all of this than to go against the team that knocked you out? And we saw the clip circle social media where he's like, I don't know how we lost against the Knicks. And I got Knicks fans, talking at me, chirping at me. So it's like this is a prime opportunity for him. And once again, it goes back to OG showing, hey, this is why I'm worth my contract. I'm ready to take on this assignment again. And let me show you that game one where I put up over 20 plus points, got you 14 boards, 24 points to be exact, 14 boards. All right. Gets you 3 steals and a block. Like, hey, I'm here too. So let's compete.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a great point. I didn't think about those comments, but yeah, those were interesting. And then it was obviously a difficult game six in that building that ended the season where Brown fouls out and I think had 7 turnovers and truly one of the worst games I've ever seen him play. So I'm sure that'll be in his mind. The memories of obviously the Tatum injury happening there in game four and the emotion of that night still even sticks with me, seeing Horford in the locker room right after reacting to it and just guys sitting in the hallway, real emotional. Like that was just such a heavy night for this team. And then obviously their season comes to an end. And remember pretty much everybody in that locker room wondering, like, is this it? Am I gone? Like, have we played our last games together? And for quite a few of that guys, that was obviously the case there. Porzingis in particular, who heads out the door. We got some clarity on, what happened there during that series. And, that's still, I mean, I've never seen anything like that. And I think most Celtics fans look at that too and say that's a big reason Boston lost that series is Porzingis going from, let's say, a 10 to a 2 on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms
Mhm.
of effectiveness. Like he just lost all his powers, could barely move, and whatever that Potts thing is that the Athletic wrote about made a lot of sense to me because that's what it looked like out there. He couldn't stay up straight. He couldn't, like it was insane. So that was interesting this week too, as we think of some of the memories of that series, which even for me, man, that was tough to watch, especially after what I was expecting to happen in that series. And obviously, it was a great run for the Knicks. I think the energy is going to be awesome in the building tomorrow night. Celtics going to be super motivated, and again, I think when you look at that roster, you look at the game, you're like, this is probably a win. But when you see how the Celtics are playing stylistically, I think it's going to shock a lot of Knicks fans how much they've changed, how aggressive they are, how athletic and just different from that slow slogging team that they saw in the second round there. And that was a big conversation with Brad Stevens in the front office coming off that loss was, man, did we look slow? Man,
But I
did
don't
we
think they're gonna.
look plodding?
But I don't think they're gonna like. I'm not gonna be surprised, and I hope Knicks fans aren't surprised about that because when you don't really have to play for anything this season, like they're just playing to be competitive at this point, right? Like
Hmm.
there's not a lot that they have to lose. It's honestly it's a gift for them to be like, what's the expectation for you this year? If you don't make the playoffs, there'll be some questions about Jalen Brown, but not the rest of the roster. If you do make the playoffs, it looks good for Jalen Brown, and it's like, well, it's not really the championship roster. They're missing a couple guys, and they're retooling. So I'm expecting these guys to go out there and play like they have nothing to lose. And to be quite honest, I think the other side of the coin to this equation to why I think this game is going to be as close as you think it is because the Knicks are trying to implement something new. And even against the
Hmm.
Cavs, who look, they didn't have Garland, they didn't have DeAndre Hunter out there. Okay, they didn't have Max Strus. Like they dealt with their injuries as the Knicks were dealing with their injuries, but it was a close game still. And so it's because part of it is because this team, the Knicks, are trying to figure out who they are. They know who they are, but they're still working on that identity to show on the court. And so because of that, I still think it's going to be a close game. And these teach and look, when you have things to prove, the game's going to get tight. And shots are going to be made. Obviously, shots are going to be missed. There's going to be some turnovers. Guys are going to want to prove themselves. I expect this to be a close game too. And so, with that being said, who's your X factor for the Celtics for tomorrow?
Ooh, I'm gonna go Simons. I'm glad you brought him up earlier. Like he eased his way into the first game. I remember his first preseason game too. Him, saying, "I was nervous. Like a new team, my first trade ever of my career. Trying to fit in with some of these other guards. Like I'm not gonna lie, I was nervous out there for the first time. And then second preseason game, six threes." All that impact that you remember of him from Portland leading that team and scoring and just being dynamic out there as a three-point shooter. Is he that comfortable into his second regular season game after trying to fit in with, Jalen and Pritchard and White in the first one? He was good in the first one. I thought his defense flashed. He scored 13 points, I think, on efficient shooting. He just didn't assert himself a ton. So I think there'll be more opportunities for him to do that in this game. And they're going to need it to keep up with the Knicks scoring here. So I'm expecting them to play him a little more, involve him a little more here, push him to be more impactful. And that's obviously one. And then another is Kata, who's obviously going to have to hold up against Towns and company inside, though. I would suspect the Celtics start Jalen against Towns as they did on
Mhm.
Embiid in that first game and just switch that. So uh, those are two guys to watch for on that Celtics side outside of like who you would obviously like typically name.
Yeah, okay. I like that. I like Anthony Simons as an option. I'm going to go with Carl Anthony Towns just because I know he's dealing with a slight hamstring injury. I know he didn't have a great game. In game one, he went 5 of 12 from the field, scored 19 points, got to the line nine times, went 8 of 9 with his free throw attempts and got 11 boards. And from the stat sheets, like the shooting percentage isn't what's great, but knowing that he's playing with a slight hamstring injury, not looking great out there yesterday in game one. I'm looking to see if he can just step it up a little bit while still being working out the Kings in this Mike Brown offense and looking like the dominant offensive center that he can. Because if Boston is not going to have any front court depth or anybody that contain him, I think what if this game could seriously get out of hand if Karl Anthony Towns decides to be who he is, which is one of the best scoring big men in the league. So if he's out there and just dominating, I could see this game instead of being like a close game, I could see this game tilting in the Knicks' favor and being a double digit win for the New York Knicks.
Yeah, and he obviously dominated the Celtics, who switched them, kept them off the three-point line. But credit to him, he took advantage and just overpowered the Tatums and wings that Celtics threw at him in the playoff series. It's going to be, again, a little bit of a different coverage he sees in this one. He's going to see double teams, full collapses on him on the post. Um, how much is he able to pass out of that? How much is he able to navigate that? I think those are going to be big factors in whether the Knicks win or lose this game. Because again, I think the Knicks' whole game plan is going to be, or the Celtics' whole game plan rather, is going to be to try to frustrate a guy like that, get the ball out of his hands, make sure he isn't able to shoot the ball cleanly at all, even foul him at times. Like that's how they're going to approach him this game, which is completely different from how they approached him in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun one tomorrow. It's gonna be a fun one tomorrow, though. Looking forward to see how both these teams compete in game two. I mean, we try to take a lot from game one. It's an 82 game regular season, man. There's a lot of data to still be collected as these teams start to mold and mesh into their own. But Bobby, I always appreciate you coming through, man, and chopping it up with me. Please let the listeners know where they can find you. If you got any work up and coming, we should be on the lookout for.
Yep, we are live after every game over on CLNS Media, so go subscribe over there on YouTube. A bunch of podcasts every week, off-day shows, stand-ups from the Garden, whether in Boston or New York, whatever Garden you want, we'll be there. And, a lot of coverage throughout the year, obviously. So check that out. Boston Sports Journal right over there occasionally, as well as CelticsBlog.com. And, of course, my work day to day is over on CLNSmedia.com, so check all those out.
Once again, make sure to go give Bobby a follow. He does a great job covering the Celtics and the league. So make sure to go give him a follow and go give him your support. Once again, salute to Knicks Nation. And I know there's some Celtics Nation in here. You guys always seem to come through, man, and always leave some comments in here.
Same on our stream, man. We're going to be seeing the Knicks fans tomorrow, I'm sure.
I am sure you're going to, if it's a win tomorrow for the Knicks, I am sure they're going to be on your live stream
Friday
commenting
night, man.
like
Ooh,
there's no tomorrow. Because
wait.
I know for sure, because I've seen it. When the Knicks lose against the Celtics in a game, Celtics fans are piling in the chat, piling in the comment section. Not expecting much this season, but hey, I know. Hey, we'll see what happens tomorrow, man. We'll see what happens tomorrow. I'm confident in the Knicks, but we'll see. Bobby, once again, I appreciate you for coming through. Knicks Nation, Celtics Nation, even if you're here, hit that thumbs up button for your boys. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, okay? Make sure to support our sponsor, DraftKings. Use that promo code KFTV to get up to 3 months free for NBA League Pass. And when you bet $5, get up to $300 in bonus bets. Also, make sure to support our other sponsor, Square.com. So make sure to go to square.com/go/KFTV to learn more about your community and supporting your neighborhood spots, okay? And salute to all the franchise channel members in here, man. I see Atala the Great, shout out to you. I see Jack City 718, shout out to you. We got Mellow Mike in here, appreciate you, as well as Zach, New York to LA, appreciate you for being here as always. Who else? Oh, we got my guy KG7 in here, always showing up. Okay, who else we got in here, man? Who else we got in here? I saw John Talento in here. I saw Junior Caroma. Appreciate you guys for coming through as well. We got Omar in the chat too. Appreciate all you guys for tapping in and staying with us. Once again, we'll see you tomorrow, man. You already know what it is. We're going to have the play-by-play and post-game, so make sure to stay tapped in as the New York Knicks take on the Boston Celtics in Madison Square Garden at 7:30 p.m. All right, everyone. We out.
Peace.